Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adventures with Andi. I recently took up weaving, and I'm learning frame loom tapestry weaving, and because I can't ever do anything simple and take my time to learn it little by little, I like to just dive in and overwhelm myself. I decided that I wanted to do the tapestry. This is the base yarn that I've been using right now, and I wanted to do sort of a design with like honeycombs and a bee in it. And this is like a large frame loom. I'm not starting small. Unfortunately, I don't have any yarn that is the color that I want for the honeycomb and the bee. I want something that's sort of like a, not quite a golden yellow, but sort of an amber, sort of an orange, yellow, amber type color.
Do you know how to make amber yarn?
How?
I don't know. I'm asking.
We're gonna dye it.
Ah.
Oh yeah, did I forget to mention we're dyeing yarn today? But you can see this is a skein, partial skein, just remnant what I have left over of some Malabrigo yarn finito in the Piedras colorway. I needed some yarn to use for weaving, and I just grabbed the first partial skein I could find, and that was this one. I kind of like how it looks. It's sort of a variegated brown with some like light gray, yellow, and dark orange, and it comes together a really nice warm brown overall. And so I thought that like sort of a amber type color, variegated yellow, dark yellow, gold type feel would be really good to do for the honeycombs and the bees, and would work well with this yarn. Unfortunately, I don't have any yarn that color. How is possible that at least not in fingering weight, I don't think in anything, and how that's possible considering the massive quantities of yarn that I own.
And have dyed.
And have dyed. Well, I own the yarn I dye.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, my stash is so beyond stable. But it does mean that today we get to dye some yarn to go along with this color of yarn to create this tapestry that I'm going to weave. All right. So this is yarn finito, which is a fingering weight yarn, and it is 100%. Yes, it is 100% pure superfine wool. So I grabbed this skein of fingering weight. Okay, technically Chad grabbed a skein of fingering weight. He's pulling up what it is because he knows I can't remember. It is, seriously, it's what he's doing. It is Dyer Supplier 75/25 Merino Nylon fingering weight yarn. This is 100 grams and 415 yards, and it is a 3-ply. Now, it's not an exact match for the fiber content of this yarn, but it's close enough. You know, tapestries will often use different kinds of fiber and yarns in straight piece of yarn. I don't know why. I'm telling you, I have yarn everywhere. But tapestries will often use different kinds and weights of yarn to weave with for different textural stuff. I don't know. Like I said, I just started this, like, what, 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I got a book, and I got a lot of fantastic advice.
You really have yarn everywhere.
Anyway, so I've only been doing this for about 2 weeks, but when I went to get the loom, I went to Gate City Yarn in Greensboro, which is run by Amanda. And I knew that I would get good advice from her. She is really great about doing that. If you've got a question, if you're wanting to try something, you can go talk to her and she will give you lots of great advice. She is incredibly knowledgeable. So she asked what kind of weaving I wanted to do, and as soon as she said, "Are you wanting to create pictures in yarn?" I'm like, "Yes, that's what I want to do. That's my thing." So she set me up with a frame loom and a book on weaving tapestries. And then, later I went back another day and she answered lots of questions for me. So I've been reading up on it. I've been practicing. I've got my loom warped. I've done my twining and my sumac and several rows of plain weave. So, yes.
No.
He's like, "You're rambling, stop talking, you're just gonna cut this out, it's making your job editing harder." Now, as for the colors, I could use food coloring, but I want something that I know is gonna be light fast, because I want this to be a piece of artwork that's gonna last for a long time, especially since it's going to be my first tapestry that I've woven. So I decided to go with commercial acid dyes, and we've got Jacquards out here. And I picked out 3 colors of the yellow. And I already know what you're thinking. "Andi, you've already dyed yarn with 5 colors of yellow. Why not just use that?" Well, because I've already earmarked that for a cloak that I'm knitting, and because it's a little bit brighter than what I want. So for the yellows, I went with, let's have Chad be Vanna White. So for the yellows, I went with
Aztec gold.
Aztec gold. And
That would be a yellow or a golden yellow.
Golden yellow.
And gold ochre.
Gold ochre. Now, these 2 are darker yellows, and they're pretty much the tone that I'm wanting. There's a little bit of difference between them. This is a little bit more of a brown. This is a little bit more of an orange leaning yellow. But this one, the golden yellow, it's more of a pure yellow, and I'm going to use more of these 2 than this one. This is just to give little bright pops of lightness to it. I also have
Jet black.
Jet black, because I want to have just little, very, very occasional bits of black in there, just to break it up so it's not just yellow orange, just to give a little bit of interest and variation to it. Now, the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to put this skein of yarn into a plastic tub with just enough water to not even quite cover it. And then I'm going to sprinkle some of each of these dyes onto the top of it randomly. We're going to let it sit for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then I'm going to pick the whole skein up and put it back down in. So that'll give us some places where we've got some nice, probably deep, intense bits of color in it, right? And then some where it all blends together. And if need be, when we flip it over, we can sprinkle some more of the dry dye powder on there. And then we'll let it sit until the dye bath exhausts, and we will heat set it like normal. But since we are going to be using dry dye powder for this, we do have our rubber respirators and our goggles, which we will be using while we do that portion of the dyeing. For as long as these jars are open, these will be on, which means we're probably going to be a little bit muffled on camera. But you know what? You only get one set of eyes, one set of lungs. You gotta protect them. Y'all come on in and we will get to dyeing this yarn.
All right, so we're gonna start with just mixing up a little bit of the dye with some citric acid.
A dry mix?
Yeah. Not a dry rub though.
No.
No. Oh, the black comes sealed. And yes, we have a yarn mop. Don't know if I mentioned that. It's been used for another video as well.
Just gonna slowly mix these together.
Yeah, we're just going to mix these together. The citric acid will not only work as our acid component, but mixing the dye with it will make it a little bit easier for me to get it spread around the way I want instead of clumped up anywhere. Hopefully. That's the theory. This has only been soaking in water for just a few minutes, and you can see it's already sucked up most of it.
It's a very low immersion.
It's incredibly low immersion. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and sprinkle first, and we are using gloves just because we're messing with the dye and we don't want our fingers all stained. The dye is non-toxic, but still better safe than sorry. So we're just going to sort of sprinkle it around. You can do this too.
With this one?
Yeah.
How do you want it organized?
Just sprinkle it however you think would look good. God, this looks like ramen noodle seasoning, doesn't it?
It does.
You don't have to use all of it if you don't want to. Okay. And now, before I switch over to this next color, I'm going to wipe my fingers off on our yarn mop, just to get them clean. They won't be dry, but that's okay. That's why we're doing this in bowls instead of straight out of the containers. So that we don't introduce any kind of moisture to the containers, into the jars of dye.
We're in a whole jar.
Well, you just get all clumpy and stuff. Okay. Now for the black, and I just want little specks of this periodically. And as you can see, mixing it in with the citric acid helps control that some. Okay. My hands are all black. Alright, this has been sitting here for about 10 minutes, so we're going to pull it up and flip it. I definitely need some more water in here, so Chad, if you would not mind, put some more water in here.
What you need?
More than that. Go ahead and just start pouring it in. Apparently just that entire time.
Okay. Alright. You planned well.
I did indeed. Because we don't want this to stay where we put it. We want some places where it stays and it's really dark, but then we also want it to blend and dye the whole thing over too. So let's go ahead and get some more on this side, because this is the underside. I probably could have used having a little more water in there when I did the first part of it. But it's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and put the rest of this in.
Yeah, makes sense.
There's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Let's sprinkle this around. And lastly,
Some black.
yes.
And how long does it stay like this?
That is long.
Is it?
That is long. If we just pull it up. Did not need to put that much there.
The beauty of random.
Yeah. Alright, I think a little bit more right up here. Alright, that's good for that. Now we're going to let this sit for about another 10 minutes. Alright, so this has been sitting here for about 10 minutes. So you go ahead and pick it up. And this is actually a really pretty color.
Looks like a cat.
I was thinking this reminds me of Circe.
Yeah.
The foster mama cat we have right now. The mom of the 3 little black kittens we've got. It reminds me a lot of her.
It doesn't smile quite as much as she does there.
Oh, she is just the happiest girl. Seriously, she is. Alright, so... Okay, I guess we're just going to let this stay like this. Could probably use some more water.
Okay, I'm going to fill this up.
I'm just kind of mixing it all together at this point. And that actually kind of looks like honey, doesn't it? The color of the water.
Okay.
That should be good. And I was just saying how the dye bath actually kind of looks like the color of honey.
Yep.
Of course, now it's a watery honey because we added more water to it.
We'll get the bees on it.
Okay.
I'll get it sorted for you.
They're out there in the yard working on the flowers and the veggie gardens and stuff. So now I'm going to put the lid on this. And we're just going to let it sit and cold vat process until it looks like the dye bath is exhausted. And then we can heat set it in the crock pot. But we're not finished yet because we still have that dye. And I'm not going to let it go to waste. All right, so what I am going to do and yes, we have a plastic shower curtain over this table to protect it. All right. So we've got this like that, and I'm just going to sprinkle this on here. Dab my fingers. Wipe out the bowl.
Way over there by the craft sticks?
Huh?
Way over by the craft sticks?
Oh, yep. There's some dye over there. So it looks like that's all of that. And it's just been sitting in this jar since I started it as a yarn mop just a couple of days ago when I mixed up dye stocks for another video. So I'm just going to put it back in here. Come on, can I get just a little bit more water for this? Thank you. And our yarn mop, by the way, is also swish fingering. That's going to be interesting.
All right, it's the next day, and let's take a peek at our yarn and see how it looks. Yeah, that exhausted pretty good, didn't it? All right, so we still need to use some heat to heat set this. So just got some water over here that we just boiled. So it is nice and hot and steamy. And we're gonna go ahead and just take our yarn out of here and put it in here. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of this dye bath. You can see most of that color is gone, just a faint little bit of yellow left. I'm gonna add a little bit of this dye bath in here just to top it up some. That is so hot. So hot. Hot, 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 hot. A little bit more. There we go. That's a good amount, I think. I'm debating if I actually need to turn the crock pot on. I mean, because it's really hot, and we would just let it sit overnight.
So I mean, you
Yes, yes, I know. I keep putting my hands in here and saying it's really hot. It's not boiling anymore.
I think if you keep the lid on it, you might be fine.
Yeah. We'll give that a try. Because yeah, it was boiling water. And it would be nice if I didn't have to plug the crock pot in. But we'll give it a try. We'll see. If we end up having a lot of bleeding, we will just go ahead and reset it. I don't think we need to put any more citric acid in. We had a pretty good amount in with the dye that we used, so I'm not going to worry about that. I am, however, because there is just the slightest bit of color in this dye bath, I'm going to take our yarn mop and I'm going to go ahead and put it in here. It's looking pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we'll just let it go ahead and sit in there. Let's see if we can grab any of that extra color. I mean, there's plenty of white left on that yarn mop. It's got room to grab more dye. It's not done as it's time as a yarn mop. I can put the lid on this. I will not be outsmarted by a plastic bin.
There you go.
It's on. All right.
Andi wins.
And look, I put the lid on that too. Yes. All right, so we're just gonna let this sit out here, let it cool overnight, and we'll come out tomorrow, rinse it, and wash it. If it turns out that it needs another heat set, even some extra citric acid, then I will let you know. Otherwise, we will come back when the yarn is done and show you what we got. And here's our finished yarn. This turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. This is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted.
Would you say you like the yarn?
I do. We've got the different shades of yellow and these amber tones coming through, and we've got the little specks of black, and they're not really, really sharp specks. They've got a little bit of blur to them that gives them a softness, and we've got, you know, just that tonal variation all throughout, and it's perfect. It looks like honey. Mm-hmm. But it's got some black specks in it, so I would not eat that honey.
Yeah. It's natural honey.
Yeah.
I do like the fade or the blurriness, as you call it, to the black. Mm-hmm. It looks a lot less like, you know, just sharp little dots and more organic, more fitting to the theme you were going for. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a place for having those just really crisp, you know, pinpoint specks of color when you're speckling. But then there's also a place to have just that softened color of the speckles. But of course, now the question is, how does it work up?
Yeah, let's see the swatch.
It works up like this. Okay, this background color, this brown, this is the just leftover yarn that I already had in my stash. It's Malabrigo Finito in the PA Dross colorway. And then here in our honeycombs, this is the yarn that we just dyed. So you can see it's just like with the PA Dross, which isn't a solid brown. It's got all these different colors going throughout it. You know, our yarn here, our yellow yarn here, has that same tonal variation to it. And the black that we speckled on it really gives it that sense of fitting in well with the background color. And it blends together really, really nice. Obviously, as you can tell, I have a whole lot left of the tapestry to weave. I am nowhere close to done yet. But you can also see from the cartoon what it's going to be. The cartoon is the drawing that you do. Like this. That's called a cartoon on a tapestry. But this gives you a good idea of how it works up. We can zoom in a little bit and show you. So yeah, you can see here how it looks, how it works up. With this white here, you can see, you know, a little better of what it looks like just on its own worked up.
Are you going to use that same color for the bee body?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. All of the parts of this that are not the Malabrigo, like the honeycomb, the bee, all of what's marked out with the cartoon, that's going to be this color. And the background's going to be that Malabrigo Piedras, which, fingers crossed, I have enough of it left to do the whole background. Because if not, I'm going to have to find a matching skein somewhere.
Or dye one.
Or dye one to match. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed watching us dye this yarn for my foray into tapestry weaving. Yes, I know this, great big huge tapestry I'm doing is ambitious, but y'all have met me.
And you decided to dye your own yarn for it too, instead of using what you had.
Yeah, y'all have met me. I can't just do it simple, not even from the get-go. But I figured that by the time I'm done with this tapestry, because I'm just doing it all in plain weave, I will have built up the muscle memory to know how to do that. So, but yes, I hope you enjoyed watching us dye this yarn to go with an existing yarn that I already had to work together in this tapestry. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, hit that like button. If you've not already, go ahead and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss anything that we do here. And we will see you on our next adventure. Bye, everybody. Say bye, Chad.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have an amazing day. Bye.